Hello and welcome to another edition of Take Pride in Retirement. Matt McClure here with you, your host, your advisor, your friend, your pal, and your confidant. Thanks so much for being a part of things. Really do appreciate you being a part of the show, always. I say it every time, and I really do mean it, because this is a place where we explore kind of how to protect and grow your hard-earned money, whether it is a lot, a little, somewhere in between. You've earned it, you've saved it, you've invested it, you want to protect it, but you want to still get growth. You want to turn that into income in retirement because you're going to need to replace your paycheck in retirement. And so those are some of the things that we talk about. Something that is very interesting that we're going to focus on today, though, is about the intersection of that, of retirement planning, of protecting and growing that money that you've worked so hard for, that intersection with caregiving that so many LGBTQ plus people find themselves doing. And we've got some statistics I'm going to share a little bit later on that shows you just how prevalent that is in the LGBTQ plus community, because it really, really is. It's a big deal. And so we'll talk about that. And the whole goal here every time is to give you not only, some tidbits of information that you can use to help make your financial life better, but also to give you peace of mind, to let you know that there is hope, that there is a chance for you. There's that possibility and hopefully that probability that you're going to have that retirement you can take pride in, because you deserve it, no matter who you are, where you come from, who you love, how you identify, how much money you have, any of those things or anything else. You deserve a retirement you can take pride in. Couple of different things I want to say here at the very beginning of the show. One, reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, concerns. If you want to talk about your particular financial situation, I'd be glad to absolutely for free do a deep dive. It's about a $2,500 value that we provide with an initial financial consultation with all the different documents and reports and analyses that you get, if I can use fancy terminology. But yeah, it's really important to me that you know what your financial situation is. And so if you want to go to takeprideinretirement.com, click on the schedule a consultation button. I would love to sit and chat with you about your individual situation. So it's takeprideinretirement.com, click schedule a consultation, or you can just click the contact page there if you've got some questions about, your financial life, maybe something specific that we talk about, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be glad to do that. I'd be glad to answer that for you. Also, if you like to use your phone as an actual phone and make a call on it every once in a while, seems like we use our phones for everything but talking on the phone. 855-246-9211 is the number. 855-246-9211 again is that number. And you give me a call. If I don't answer immediately, leave a message as detailed as you want. I will get back to you just as soon as humanly possible. All right. Also, follow me on the socials. I'm on the socials trying to build up an audience there as well. And if you are a fan of the show, if you've been listening for a while, or if this is your first time listening and you're like, hey, I want more content from this guy, I really appreciate that. And I would appreciate it if you would go online to the socials, Facebook. I've got Instagram. There's Threads. There's the old YouTubes. And then there's Blue Sky as well. Blue Sky is the newest one, and it's been building pretty fast, actually. A nice audience there, a nice community that we're building on Blue Sky. But on any of those, just search for Take Pride in Retirement. Take Pride in Retirement. That's all you have to search for. It'll come up. You'll see my happy little face there, my bearded face, saying things about retirement and hopefully giving you little gems of wisdom that I have gathered over the years. And really, again, the whole point of the show is, that no matter who you are, you deserve a retirement that you can take pride in. And that is the message that I like to share everywhere on the socials as well, right? Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about caregiving, as I mentioned, this time around. And it's something that I know about very well. I'll get into that momentarily. First, though, let's get some inspiration for our conversation, shall we? Let's do that with our quote of the week.
And now for some financial wisdom. It's time for the quote of the week.
Well, this time around, we've got another quote from unknown. A mystery person out there, but a mystery person spitting words of wisdom here. So here we go with the quote. It is this: you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first. I'll say that again. You can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first. Make sure that your cup is full before you try to fill up somebody else's, right? And that really kind of goes to the heart of what we're talking about today when we talk about caregiving. And we'll talk about what that really means. I think it's kind of like, it's almost like RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how in the world are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here? Amen. That is very, very true, I think, in a caregiving situation as well. As we talk about caregiving, though, it gets complicated, right? And this is something, as I said a moment ago, that I know well. It sort of started out when I was a kid. My sort of experience with caregiving, really kind of throughout my life, I've been a caregiver in some way, shape, or form. When I was little, so when I was born, they're like, "Oh God, this is going to be a long episode." He's talking about when he was born. No, very quick synopsis here. When I was born, my parents were a little bit older. My dad was 40, my mom was 35 when I was born, and so I grew up with a lot of older people around me in my home and in my life in general. When I was a kid, my grandmother, my mom's mom, lived with us in the house. And, she was older as well and had fallen and injured her knee and wasn't able to get around as well as she had been able to previously, of course. And so when I was little, she was in her 70s and 80s. And then eventually in her 80s, she had to go to a nursing home and all of that. But I saw by example, kids taking care of their parents, really, because my mom was kind of primary caregiver. My dad and my sister and myself eventually helped all take care of my grandmother, but it was just kind of like what you do. And here's the thing, I know, I'm so fortunate to have had parents that I could count on no matter what, right? They, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, and I don't ever want to downplay this at all. I know so many people have been rejected by their families, have been thrown out of homes, have been, had to build that chosen family, which, I still have my biological family, but I have that chosen family as well. So I kind of consider myself very fortunate because I have best of both worlds. But at the same time, there are so many people who don't have that. And so I never, ever want to downplay that or take for granted the fact that I've had a wonderful family biologically that maybe not necessarily always understood me and or approved of my my life in the beginning, but grew and learned. And now, my husband and I are just part of the family like everybody else, and go to, as a matter of fact, tomorrow, as of the day that I'm recording this, tomorrow, going to sort of a mini family reunion thing. And so I love that. That is something that I never thought would be the case when I was a baby gay. But so many people in the LGBTQ plus community don't have that, right? So I'm so grateful for that. I've, I helped, as I said, take care of my grandmother when I was a kid, but then also as an adult, several years back when my husband and I lived in New York, my mother-in-law, his mom, moved in with us. She was diagnosed with cancer for a third time. Spent 18 months living with us. And it was at the same time some of the most fulfilling and some of the most difficult times that I've experienced. And she was just a delightful, wonderful person, loved by absolutely everyone. And, to see her be sick was very difficult. For me, I imagine it was tenfold for my husband. But then, after she passed a few years later, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer. Again, he had had a tumor removed from his kidney, or had part of his kidney removed several years prior, but then the cancer came back on his adrenal gland. And so he had that. He had a form of dementia as well. And so taking care of him, like seeing the person who I had always been able to count on, and who was strong, like my dad was so strong, like seeing, because he worked in a factory his whole life, or not his whole life, but he worked kind of hard labor his whole life. So my dad was a very, like a physically strong man. And to see him become weak and get older and sicker and all of those things, that was rough. And again, in those last few months, like being there to take care of him was so fulfilling, but so difficult at the same time, cleaning up after him and all those things. And it takes a toll emotionally, physically, and all of that. But at the same time, it's so fulfilling. And I can't stress that part enough. But as we talk about caregiving, we're talking about kind of the intersection, or before I started recording, I started thinking about it as it's more of a junction than an intersection, because there are a lot of different roads that converge here. But how caregiving intersects with retirement planning mainly, but also like your mental health, your emotional health, all those things. Now, as I said on last week's show, and if you haven't listened to that one, of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, leave us a great rating, all of those things. Tell your friends. Dolly Parton said once, if you loved us, tell all your friends. If you hated us, tell all your enemies. Tell everybody about the podcast. So I'd love it if you would help me spread the word about it. But go back and listen to last week's show, because I talked a lot about emotional and mental effects of financial planning and financial stressors. Finances are the biggest stressor for a lot of people, and like a leading cause of divorce and all of those things. So, but as I said on that show, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, any of the things. But mental health and emotional health are part of this discussion as well, because it has to be when we're talking about caregiving, especially caregiving for those loved ones, whether they be biological or chosen family. And so we'll talk about that here. And this discussion is one that's really important for people, especially I feel like even, in your 40s, 50s, 60s, who are still working, trying to save, trying to invest, maybe planning to travel in retirement. And meanwhile, you're also caring for a parent. You're also caring for a partner or a friend, member of that chosen family, even a child, if you have a disabled child or someone who needs extra care. And so, yeah, caregiving, it is tough. It's absolutely rewarding, 100%. But it can also be exhausting physically, mentally, emotionally. And as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I'm talking to you because this really often means that you've got unique emotional and social weight on your shoulders. It's a bigger burden for LGBTQ plus folks. And I'll tell you, the numbers back that up. The stats back that up. There's a study by SAGE, which is a great organization, and the National Alliance for Caregiving, that found that 23%, so almost a quarter of LGBTQ plus adults over age 50 are caregivers, and often for people who are not their biological relatives. So nearly a quarter of LGBTQ plus people are caregivers if they're over 50 years old. That's compared with just 16% in the national general population. So why is that? Why is it so much more prevalent among LGBTQ plus folks? Well, chosen family, of course, as I said, plays a big role in the community. A lot of us may have been estranged from families or created the support systems outside of traditional homes. And that means that caregiving will fall to us. As I said, I'm so grateful for my wonderful family, but many people don't have that. I know so many people who've been tossed out of homes, who've been disowned, who've been that sort of thing. And so, the caregiving falls to members of the LGBTQ plus community even more because of the non-traditional sort of status, the non, mom, dad, 2.5 kids, a dog and a cat and a white picket fence. Like that's just not reality for the LGBTQ plus community. And it often comes with, if you are caring for someone who's a member of your chosen family, no legal or financial recognition that might come from, caring for someone who's a legal spouse or a biological child or parent or whatever. And so you may be the one taking your best friend to their chemo appointments. You may be caring for a parent who is aging, who never fully accepted your identity. Or you could be supporting your longtime partner without a formal marriage license in place. Those are all some of the scenarios that we find ourselves in the LGBTQ plus community. And so, yeah, it's emotionally complex. It can be financially draining. And it's almost always under-recognized. And so as part of this show, I want to say thank you to those people who are caregivers, because I know firsthand how difficult that is and how often unrecognized, or at least under-recognized, your hard work is. So it may not mean the world coming from some rando guy in a podcast, but thank you. Thank you for that hard work that you put in and day out. It is not easy. And so there's also, I mentioned there the financial toll of caregiving, and the numbers are pretty eye-opening here, because it really does highlight what we like to always highlight on the show, right? Financial clarity, financial freedom, and getting you to that point where you can have that retirement that you can take pride in. And so this is from AARP. This is a caregiving out-of-pocket costs study that they did a couple of years back. They found that caregivers on average spend a little more than $7,000, $7,242 out of pocket each year on caregiving related expenses. And more than half of caregivers report reducing their work hours or leaving the workforce entirely. So you've got greater expenses and less income. The math ain't mathin'. So it's like, what do you do, right? And so now think about what that means for your retirement. If you have to be spending more money and you have less coming in. So lost income means there are fewer retirement contributions going into those accounts, the 401k, the IRA, the whatever type of account you may have. You're losing time working. And so that also means that your years of work history, your years of income, earned income that get counted for Social Security are fewer. So, they count your highest 35 years of earnings as part of your Social Security. And so if you lose work time, especially later on in life when you are supposed to be earning the highest that you've ever earned in your life, your Social Security credits are then going to be lower. The caregiving costs then also mean, a direct hit to your wallet. Things like, if you have done well and you have saved up that emergency fund, let's say every month, or your retirement funds that are saved up, maybe in a tax advantaged account, maybe you have to take out a certain portion of that. Then you have to suffer tax penalties for taking out that money early if you're under a certain age. And then, maybe that money comes out of your emergency fund. Then what you're going to do if the HVAC goes out? Or you got to get new appliances for the kitchen because they're 150 years old, whatever the deal may be, or if you need a new car because it breaks down, or God forbid you get in an accident or something like that and it's totaled. So there's all of that really is a big issue in and of itself individually. But then you layer in LGBTQ plus identity into the mix and the challenges just kind of multiply, right? Because maybe you are dealing with those family dynamics of caring for a parent who never fully accepted you, or, another relative or something like that. And also, factoring in the LGBTQ plus factor, for lack of a better term, if you're not legally married, you are probably not going to have access to your partner's health benefits or Social Security spousal benefits. I should say you may not have access to health benefits from your partner. Most private companies will allow that today, even if you're not married. But Social Security spousal benefits are not going to be a thing if you're not a spouse. That's why they call them spousal benefits. So that changes the calculus quite a bit on your retirement income picture, potentially, especially if one of you is a much higher earner than the other. Because as part of a survivor benefit, the spouse who has the higher check, when they pass, that check gets passed on to the lower earner. The lower earner's old check goes away, but they get that amount that the higher earning spouse was getting, and then cost of living adjustments on top of that, et cetera, et cetera. So you basically inherit their benefit. You lose your own, but you inherit their benefit. You keep the larger of the two. And so if you're not married, you can't take advantage of that. Also, if your spouse is a much higher earner than you or vice versa, there's a spousal benefit while you're living. So if you, so that's what I was just mentioning. By the way, I should clarify here, 2 different benefits. That was a survivor benefit that I just mentioned. What I'm talking about now is the true spousal benefit. And that is that if you are receiving Social Security and your spouse is receiving Social Security, if your benefit is less than 50% of theirs at full retirement age, then you would get a top off of your benefit to 50%, up to 50% of theirs. So if yours is less than half of what your spouse's is, there's a possibility you could be getting that spousal top off, and that could really be a big boost. But you don't get that unless you're a spouse. That's why, again, it's called a spousal benefit. The survivor benefit thing is the same. Like, you got to be a spouse to get the survivor benefit. And so let's also think about this. If you reduce your work hours or if you quit work, you risk losing the compounding growth of retirement money that you're putting away. You have less money going in. Those contributions stop, essentially. And then also caregiving can really impact your mental health. As I talked about earlier, I mean, that in turn affects even if you don't quit your job, even if you don't retire earlier, whatever the case may be, or earlier than you would like, that impact on your mental health due to caregiving can really have an impact on your focus on your job and all that. And so that really decreases your earning power potentially. So that is also something to think about. And I've had, clients and other people in my life who are well on their way to a confident retirement, but caregiving commitments can really make a huge difference and change their entire timeline, having to put off the things that they wanted to do for themselves because of caregiving. And look, I do not at all downplay or belittle anyone who is a caregiver. I've been there myself. I'm sure I will be there again. It's important work, but you've got to make sure that you've got the means to be able to do it in a way that is going to be not detrimental to your financial health, to your mental health, and all of the things. And a lot of people don't even realize how much it is costing them until I sit down with them and look at it together. That 7,000 whatever a year that AARP study found were, the out-of-pocket kind of costs for people spending on caregiving. That is, it's definitely an average, because I've seen a lot higher than that on an annual basis. And so, speaking of that emotional kind of side of things, because, I often say on this show many, many times, retirement planning is not just about numbers. It's not just about a spreadsheet. It's not just about a chart that says, oh, here's your projected earnings and income and all of those kinds of things. It's about so much more than that. It's about your mindset. It's about your emotional health as well. So caregiver burnout, it can be very real. And the warning signs of that can include things like fatigue, especially chronic fatigue, any kind of growing resentment toward the person that you're caring for. Because it's a weird thing to have those tables turned, like I was saying earlier, like I experienced with my dad, having to kind of become the parent of my parent was that was a tough thing to have to deal with. And so, you can develop resentment toward the person that you're caring for, unintentionally, obviously, but you're just so wrapped up in the caring for them part, you get overwhelmed. You could have trouble sleeping, maybe withdrawing from others, developing depression or anxiety, any of those things. And so if that resonates with you, two things. I want you to know you are not alone. You're only human. You are not weak. You can ask for help. And especially if you are stressing out about money at the same time, because, maybe you're living on a fixed income, maybe you have quit your job, maybe you have done XYZ thing to make sacrifices to be able to then care for the person that you're caring for. If you're stressing about your money, reach out to me. TakePrideInRetirement.com is the website. I'd be glad to give you a free consultation. Again, it's about a $2,500 value that I'll provide absolutely for free. Take a deep dive of your finances, get you set up with a plan that can account for these things, the what ifs in life, all right? TakePrideInRetirement.com. You can schedule that consultation there. 855-246-9211 is the number. 855-246-9211, again, is the number to call as well. And so some things that I kind of recommend, and again, this is just from a layman's standpoint here. I am not a mental health professional, but set some boundaries, learn to say no, learn to delegate. I've had to learn that in my professional life quite a bit. It's like one of those things where you start a new job, and in the beginning, you are afraid to ever say no to anything. I've been there a lot. And you kind of set the bar really high for yourself. So then you end up just really creating more work for yourself down the road, because you've then set the bar so high, you got to do it at least that well every time. And especially if you want to give yourself some room to grow in something, you gotta do even better than what your best was last week, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you can say no to things, you can delegate, you can hire help if you have the means, even part-time, or get another relative or a friend to help share that burden. You can find a support group, LGBTQ plus inclusive support group, SAGE, that's SAGE. Just search for SAGE, SAGE, which offers resources for you. AARP as well offers resources nationwide. And so, you can be a part of both of those and really, connect with others who are dealing with the same thing. Maybe get some support, get some help. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. Schedule your own health appointments. Take care of yourself. Again, that goes back to the quote this week. You can't pour from an empty cup. So make sure that your cup is full before you try to fill up anybody else's. Take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, how the heck are you going to take care of anybody else? So don't delay your own care. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, talk to an actual health professional, a mental health professional, therapist, or psychiatrist, psychologist. Obviously, one who's LGBTQ plus affirming. And sagecare.org is that website, by the way, that for the SAGE group. It's sagecare.org. That's elder care resources. They've got so many wonderful things. I spoke to a rep from that group several weeks back now, back in the spring, and you can listen to that episode or watch that episode on YouTube. It's absolutely great conversation about primarily about one of their tools for budgeting and all of that, for sort of an app that they have that's online that you can use to help budget in retirement. It's a really great resource there. And of course, the Trevor Project also is a good mental health support resource, especially for younger caregivers. And check out AARP actually has an LGBTQ plus caregiver guide also. And so, taking care of yourself, again, it's not selfish. It's helping you be sustainable. And then you got to think about protecting your retirement plan as well. It's like, how do you keep your retirement on track when you are taking care of someone else? It complicates things, of course, but it's not impossible. And so some practical steps, some practical tips here. One is to keep contributing, keep paying yourself first. Even if you have scaled back that income, whatever income you still have coming in, every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. Contribute at least something. to that IRA or 401k that you may have. The power of compounding growth can still work for you. And it's who was it? Albert Einstein, who said that, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And those who understand it earn it, those who don't pay it. And if you understand the power of compounding interest, which is basically, you earn interest on something 1 month or 1 year, well, then that becomes essentially part of the principal. And then you earn interest on top of that interest earned. So that compounds. It really is a snowball effect in the best way possible. So make sure that you are still contributing to those accounts as much as you possibly can. You also need to know your rights. I mean, if you're caring for a spouse or even a partner, you could be eligible for unpaid leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA. It may not apply, though, if you're unmarried or your workplace isn't inclusive. They might not be as flexible, obviously. So check with your human resources, check with state laws. Consider a long-term care policy. This is something that I've talked about before. Or, if you have an annuity, or if you're interested in an annuity, which you can turn into a lifetime income stream in retirement, it's like a personal pension, essentially. You can get long-term care riders attached to those where, you could see a lump sum benefit if you're confined or if that loved one, whoever's named on the particular policy as the annuitant is named there, they can maybe get a lump sum if they're confined to a long-term care facility, or maybe an increase in the income, maybe a doubling of the income. That's a fairly common one in a few annuities that I've seen. And maybe a traditional long-term care policy for that loved one or for yourself, or both. It's not the right fit for everyone. I always say that everybody's situation is different. Everything is customizable, but it's worth exploring with a trusted advisor. And again, if you don't have a trusted advisor, takeprideinretirement.com is the place to go. I just happen to know a guy, and that's his website. He's me. Update your estate plan as well. It's a good one. Make sure that your healthcare proxy, power of attorney, beneficiaries, all of those things reflect your wishes. It's a very eye-opening thing to care for someone, especially if you're caring for someone toward the end of their life, right? So if you're caring for someone who wants you to make decisions on their behalf, also make sure that their wishes are carried out, that their healthcare proxy, power of attorney, their will, all of those things are all taken care of and updated also. And when we talk about that and talk about all these financial sort of aspects here, talk to a fiduciary. That would be me, if you are so inclined. Together, I want to help adjust your retirement plan if needed to account for caregiving. Those expenses, the shifts in your timeline, possible tax advantages, things like deducting medical expenses if possible, using a health savings account if eligible, all of those things, and connect you with tax experts who can really run through all of that with a fine-tooth comb, and I can help you with tax planning for the future. And so, all of those things are things to think about when you're thinking about the financial aspect of caregiving in retirement. And I have to say, this is one that hits home for me this week because of all of the things that I've mentioned and more that I haven't quite yet. But takeprideinretirement.com. I just want to emphasize that. Takeprideinretirement.com is the website. 855-246-9211 is the phone number. 855-246-9211. Give me a call. And even if you just have a question, you just want to say hi, or you just want to ask me, what it's like to work with me, I'd be glad to do that. Explain things to you. There's no cost, there's no obligation, there's no pressure. I'm not a high pressure person. Kind of what you hear is what you get as far as me and my attitude toward things. I really, really, really want to help. And if I can, I absolutely will. And so I guess I want to kind of not end on a sour note here. I want to end with some encouragement. If you are a caregiver, be proud of yourself, right? You are showing up for somebody, a loved one in your life, whether they're a biological family or not. You are showing up for them in really the most powerful way possible. But I do want you to remember that showing up for yourself is just as important. As much as you're showing up for them, you got to show up for you. And the burnout, I said be proud of yourself for taking care of somebody, and you absolutely should, but burnout is not a badge of honor. Burnout can be a big warning sign. So take time to take a breath, step back, and make sure that your own future is still a priority. Take some time for you. Again, asking for help, there is nothing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, it is encouraged, especially if you are having a difficult time in current situation. Even if you just want to, ask, say, can so-and-so, can you come and sit with this person for a while? I just need to go out and sit at a coffee shop for an hour or two. Decompress. How important is that? And especially if you are in a caregiving type situation, like, oh my gosh, how great does that sound? And also, make sure that not only is your present a priority, like your current state of affairs is a priority, but your future is a priority as well. Take care of yourself. And that is not stepping away from taking care of the other person. It is helping you grow, really. You're creating a life for yourself where you can continue loving and living and thriving and caring and all of the things. So I want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to go to takeprideinretirement.com, schedule a consultation with me. I would love to sit down and make sure that you have contingencies in place, that you've got the funds that you need to be able to do the things that you want to do and to be able to do the things that you end up having to do. Whether it's caring for a loved one, whether it is, replacing that HVAC or whatever else type emergency situation. TakePrideInRetirement.com is the place to go. Click on schedule a consultation. I'll be glad to do that for you. Do a deep dive, no cost, no obligation. All right. 855-246-9211 is the website, is the phone number. I don't know why it's the second time I've done that. That's the phone number. All right. So also, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky, all the places. Please like, subscribe, follow, whatever the case may be, for all of those different places online to follow the show. And, if you are caregiving and you want a second set of eyes on your plan, I'm here for you with no cost, no obligation. All right. So let's work together. Let's plan with pride. All right. And give you that retirement that you can take pride in, because that's what you deserve. Well, that's going to do it for this time around. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, as always. And until next time, take pride in yourselves and take care of each other. We'll see you then.